Welcome to the first edition of the AFLA Time Capsule. This is a video section of the AFLA Spec Sheet newsletter that's going to include reminiscence from industry pioneers on some of the early days of the commercial fleet management industry. And today we'd like to interview Ed Bobit and to get his recollections on how AFLA started in 1969 in a Montreal hotel room.
Thanks, Mike. Actually, you know, the whole fleet industry really started in the late 30s between Zolly Frank and Sam Lee, and then the war came along and not much happened, and it really didn't pick up any steam until the 50s. Really, when that both the car companies and the leasing companies started blooming, and it really started to catch on. Well, if you kind of go back in 1957, I remember, because I was working on a heavy truck fleet magazine called Fleet Owner at the time out of Chicago. But Bud Morrison was kind of a leading figure in what I call the light truck and car fleet industry, which really is what we think of when we think of fleet today. But Bud was with Don Allen Chevrolet in New York, and he came to Chicago, and he was really one of the first, what would you call it, fleet managers within a dealership that really helped professionalize all this, and that was really kind of the start, 57, that I recall. And then that's also the year, I think, that NAFA started in 1957. Well, a lot of us types that were kind of suppliers or ancillary, not real fleet managers, but in the industry, were together, and we'd go to NAFA, and NAFA wouldn't let us vote. They didn't have an affiliates committee at that time. They really kind of looked with disdain, frankly, on if you weren't a fleet manager. They liked to be taken out to dinner or something like that, but you weren't a part of the organization. So we talked, and actually it was Toronto in 69, not Montreal, where I kind of assembled a group and said, you guys have been bitching for, years now about how we aren't part of this thing, and they just like us for our sponsorship, so to speak. So we kind of decided to do something about it, and then so it was kind of officially formed then, but I went back. We didn't have any money, anything like that, so I went back to our attorney, our company attorney, John Denniston in Chicago, and he got me a set of bylaws, and I pulled those together, and we met at the New York Sheraton Hotel the next year, and NAFA was in town, and that sort of thing. So we all got together, and this was maybe a dozen, 15 at the most, and we elected Bud Morrison president, and there were 4 or 5 others. Woody Woodward, who sold Fords in Chicago, fleet, and Don Fenton, who's selling Chevrolet's fleet, and Mark Rosenstock knocked on the door while we were doing all this, just before we voted, and he had Key Oldsmobile out on Long Island. Well, he wanted to come in and join us, because these are all a bunch of drinking buddies of mine and each other, and I had a bar set up. I was kind of standing in the closet. I had the bar on the side. We tried to handle business and a few drinks at the same time. Anyway, Mark wanted to come in and join us, but he hadn't been there the year before when we really formed this thing. And I said, if you got $100, you can come in. That was going to cover the booze and a few snacks, see. So he shelled out $100. We put him on the board, and he was active with us ever since. And then there was a guy by the name of Jack Rosenbaum, who also sold Chevrolets out of Philadelphia, I think. These were our board members. Anyway, that's when we got started, and that's how it really started and was formed, just to have an association, and it's hardly an association. It was just a group of good guys with a lot of fun, who enjoyed a drink, and they loved the fleet business. And eventually, of course, the fleet managers caught on and said, gee, these are really good guys and we can learn from, because they really know what the business is about. And I think that's been the value and how AFLA grew from that standpoint. And if you really look back at 1969 when we formed, I mean, this was a critical year. This is when the people from LPI all of a sudden go to Jelco, you know, that's the Harry Brays and the Stan Chasins, DeWitt Chapel, that sort of thing. I mean, it was exciting times in our business. So if you want to know how it started, that's how it started. I was elected executive director and secretary treasurer because there wasn't anybody else, and we didn't charge them for an office space or anything, but that's how it got started, and it just grew from there. Right. I hope that that's kind of gives you a little background.
Okay, well, thanks, Ed.
That's all right.
Yeah. And this year is the 40th anniversary of AFLA. So thank you, and stay tuned for next month's time capsule.